Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Building Microservices with Go. And in this episode, we're going to look at that gRPC bidirectional streaming again. We're going to complete our implementation. Let's take a quick look at what we did last time, just a little recap. So what we started to build out is a new method on our currency server. We added this new subscribe rates service, and subscribe rates is a bidirectional streaming method here. If we take a look at the proto for currency, you can see that it starts with RPC. So it's an RPC method, name is subscribe rates, but then we have this keyword stream before the message type. This indicates to gRPC that we're going to have streaming requests. So it's not just a unary operator like the get rate, which means that you do a request and a response and that's it, it's over. With subscribe rates, you open a connection and you can send multiple requests. Now, independently with a bidirectional streaming service, you can also send multiple responses. Again, the indication is around that stream keyword before the message type. It would, of course, be possible to have subscribe rates, which has a streaming request and a singular response, but we don't have that in this instance. We're going to use bidirectional, so two-way streaming. So we implemented this, and in the subscribe rates handler, what we said was that this is kind of a different from a sort of a standard unary handler in that it shouldn't exit for as long as the connection is open. So what we actually have in this is two blocks. We have a block for handling the messages from the client, and we have a block for sending messages back to the server. So this is kind of set up like this. And just to kind of see this in action, you'll be able to see that if we just run the service, and then we are just going to use our gRPC curl, and we're going to make a call to the service. You can see that we're streaming back the responses there every 5 seconds from this method here. And if we were to send a message, it would get handled by this block. So that was a simple enough example which allowed us to kind of to demonstrate how bidirectional streaming worked, but it's not particularly practical. So let's start implementing the rest of the service. So what we were intending on doing with this currency service, and specifically the subscribe method, is we wanted a way that we can continually send updates to a connected party whenever a rate changes. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And also, we want the particular services to be able to subscribe for changes in rates. So they can say, hey, I'm interested in the exchange rate between euros and dollars and nothing else. And they would only get messages when euros and dollars change. So let's see how we can do this. The first thing that we need to do is we need to kind of make some slight modifications to our rates client. So our rates client is the thing which actually gets all of the exchange rates from the bank API. So let's take a quick look at that. So that just has a simple method get rates, which kind of hits the European Central Bank API to get those reference exchange rates. What we need to do is we need to add a method onto here which is going to poll that API, or maybe it's actually connecting up to an API with PubSub or something like that, but we don't have that, but we're going to fake it. So we can fake, we can just see how we can fake that request. So then we can just set up that rate monitoring. So for the time being, let's just put it in here. So we're going to do, let's think, rates updated equals, and we're going to do the rate client dot monitor rates, 5-second interval, and then we're just going to do for range RU. So we're just going to loop over that channel, and then let's just log that out. So we'll just do l.info got updated rates. Okay. Of course, this is going to block and we don't want it to, so we've got to put that into a Go func, which is fine. We can just put that in there like that. Oops, delete that. And then we can run that. So let's have a look. So we're running, and then every 5 seconds, what we're going to see is that got updated rates, and there we go. So that's because every 5 seconds we're getting these updates here. So this is good. So we've got that monitoring going on now. So let's go back and let's start to break up this subscription, because at the moment we are not listening for any particular messages. So what we want to do is we want to keep track of the different clients and what they're interested in. Okay, so we need to track that subscription, and we can just implement a simple map and use that as a cache. And we're going to do that like this. So we'll call it subscriptions, and it's going to be of type map. The key, we're going to use the subscribe rate server, and the type, well, it's going to be a well, what would it be? It would be a collection of rate requests. So protos dot rate request, like that. We're just going to create it down here. So we just make map protos dot currency blah, and then our collection of protos dot rate request, and then we're all good. So when it comes to using it, we can go back down to our subscribe rates. So whenever we get a new subscribe rate message, we want to update our map. So we can update our map by doing c.subscriptions. And then the key that we're going to use is going to be the actual client, sorry, the server. Client thing, server client, client connection. And what we want to do is we want to append the rate to that collection. So the first thing we need to do is we need to just get the collection of rate requests. And we can do that just like this. Now, if this is kind of empty, we want to create our initial map. So we can just do a little check there. We can say if not okay, then what we want to do is create our map, which is going to be like this, and it's just going to be protos dot rate request, and well, protos dot, well, that kind of went a little bit crazy there. And then so we've ensured that we do have a collection, then we can just append to it. So we're just going to do RRs equals append, and then we're going to add just the simple message. So that is, all that's doing is that's just updating our object. And again, we'll just set that subscription again like that. So now every time we get a subscription message, we're just appending it to our little cache. So now, rather than kind of just sending this random message, what we're going to do is we're only going to send back the rate messages when things sort of change. So let's just get rid of this because we don't need this anymore. And let's take this outside now because we don't want this to block. And we can just refactor this up a little bit. An error. All right, there we go. So let's have a look at how we can actually implement that kind of subscription. So in our monitor rates, what we're doing is whenever we get an update to say there are new rates available, we are just logging something. Now, what we want to do is we want to do something a little bit more sophisticated. We want to find out who has subscribed to a particular rate from our subscription collection, and we want to then send them a message to kind of say, hey, there's an update to the rate that you're interested in. So let's take a look at how we can go through and we can do that. So the first thing that we need to do is let's leave that log there, but let's loop through our subscriptions. So we're going to say for, and we want to get the key because that's actually the client that we can use to send a message back to, and the value. Range subscriptions. That's just like that, okay? And why is that complaining? Why are you complaining there? Undeclared name, oh, of course. Because we haven't created subscriptions. I tell you what we really actually need to do is to refactor all of this stuff out into a method, because it's going to get very untidy. So let's just quickly do that. Func C currency, and we're going to call it handle updates. And we're just going to paste that into there. So this is going to be c.rates, just refactoring a tiny little bit there, c.log, c.subscriptions. Okay, and then we can just refactor this as well. And we can say C is that, C dot, it's going to be go, handle updates, return C. And I'm going to spell handle right. There we go. Okay, so I've just refactored that ever so quickly just to make it a little bit tidier. But now back into handling our updates. So what we need to do is we need to take this key and this value. So let's find out what this particular client has subscribed for. And we can find that because they've got this protos rate request collection, which is the value there. So again, we can loop over that. So let's just put a comment there, loop over subscribed clients, loop over rates. So we can just do for, don't care about the index, and we're just going to say RR equals range V. Okay, so this is a collection of rate requests. So then what we can do is we need to get the rate request that they're interested in and send it back to them. So we can call this method here. If we look at c.getRate, that, sorry, not c.getRate, c.rates.getRate, this will give us the rate for the base and the destination. So we have that here in the subscription request. So we can just say rr dot, which way around is this again? Base and then destination. Get base string, and then we can say rr dot get destination string. That is going to give us the rate and potentially an error. So we can just handle that in here, and we're going to say running out of letters, if error, and then we can say if error is not equal to nils, always following that good pattern of defensive programming. And in this instance, we're just going to log it. We're just going to say log dot error, and it's unable to get updated rate. And then we're just going to log out. Whoa. Well, And this is just going to be r dot get base. It's worthwhile just spending a little bit of time to write a decent error message, because we'll need it later, I'm pretty sure. Well, if you write code like I do, we will anyway. But assuming we get that rate and everything is good, then what we can do is we can send that back to the client. So again, the client is the key. So we can do k dot send, and that's going to send a bidirectional streaming message to the client. So we can do k dot send, and it requires a proto rate response. So we can construct one of those. We can just say protos dot rate response. Well, and we're going to do base. We can actually just copy this from here. So we can just do RR base, and then the destination is going to be, and then the rate itself is just going to be that. This is going to return us an error, so we have to handle that. And then of course we're going to just defensively handle that, and we're going to say it's just, if error is not equal to nil, we're just going to say unable to send updated rate, something like that. All right, now let's have a look. What's this complaining about? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so rate response is actually just a rate. Well, that's perfectly fine by me. Well, actually, no, it's not. That isn't going to work, because if we're just sending back the rate as a number, because we're now doing this asynchronous request, it comes from a subscription. We don't know where it comes from, so we're going to need to kind of just quickly update our protos. So rate request is just like this. We're just going to add that on to the rate response as well. We will obviously need to rebuild our protocol buffers, the defined code. So I'm just going to do that with make protos. Okay. See the error message there, it's saying the field number 1's already been in use. And that is absolutely correct. So the reason that we're getting an error message there, rate is the, sorry, just adding a comment, is because a protocol buffer, they need to have an index. And this is so that you can add and you can change the various different fields. It's just to kind of maintain the order. So we're just kind of update that there, and then let's just rebuild our protos. Okay, cool. So that's working. So now let's just quickly go back over to our currency service, because get rate originally just returns rate response like this, which just doesn't have, you know, anything in there. Let's just add the base and the destination. So base. Just to keep it consistent. Right, there we go. So this is all good. So now, just quick recap of what we've just done. So subscribe rates allows the client to subscribe to notifications for updated rates. That has a combination of the base and the destination. We have our method here called handle updates, and our client, which is connected to the bank. Whenever we get updates from the bank, we're going to forward those on to our interested clients. So let's give this a test. So we can just run our server again. So go run main.go. And what we're going to do is we're going to just use our gRPC curl. And the message that we're going to send, well, let me just run that. I'll show you. gRPC curl subscribe rates. So we're not getting any messages right now, and that's because we haven't subscribed for everything. gRPC curl, we're going to send a message like this. So it's going to be something like base GBP, and let's say destination, I don't know, US dollars. So we can send a message like that. Whoops. Oh, my bad. Look at that. We got a comma missing. Oh, didn't want to save that either. Never mind. Let's run that again. All the typos. There we go. And now you can see that we are now getting messages for GBP US dollars. And that's because we've subscribed to that. Let's say we want to also get, gosh, I'm trying to think, what currencies have we got? Oh, we could do Japanese yen. Let's do JPY in US dollars. And again, I'm just going to paste that in. So now what we should do is we should be getting 2 subscriptions, one for US dollars and one for, there we go, yen. So that's working, and you can see there that we're getting these client requests, and we're sending these messages back based on subscription. So this is all working exactly how we would like it, which is great. But now all we've got to do is we need to, well, first thing we do is get rid of that, because that will cause an error in about 5 minutes time, is implement this over inside of our product API. Let's just dive over to the product API. So in the product API, in the get, what we're doing is we're just going down here. Whenever we get this product listing, we're getting the currency, and we are just kind of calling that, where is it? Where is it? There we go. Getting the products. So let's go to the definition, and get product is going to get the rate. And if we go to that, we're making that rate request. So we need to tidy this up a little bit, because what we're actually doing is we're making that rate request every single time. So again, because we've now got this subscribe method, and we know that we can kind of keep track of things, we can cache the data. So again, in the same way as we had that set up before, we can cache our rates. So let's just create a very simple cache here on our products DB, and we're going to call it rates. And what rates is going to have is, it's just going to be a simple map. It's going to be the string float 64. That corresponds to our rate. So now, instead of kind of making this call every single time, where am I? Here we go. To create a rate request, what we can do first is just check our cache. So we're going to say if p.rates, sorry, we need to just do blah, blah, blah. Okay. If p.rates destination, and then we can just check, okay, so it's just that map collection. So if we've already got a cached rate, then what we're going to do is we're just going to return the cached rate and no error. So if cached, return. Now, if we don't have it cached, what we want to do is we want to get the rate, but we also want to subscribe. So we want to get the first instance of it, but we want to then subscribe for future updates. So we can do get initial rate, subscribe for updates. So then we shall do something like this. We're going to do It's going to be an error, and we're going to do p dot currency service dot subscribe rates context dot background, and then this takes a rate request like so. Subscribe rates returns of course, right, is my bad. We can't just call the subscribe rates because we've got to create a subscribe rates client. And that's because it's bidirectional streaming, isn't it? Okay, so let's come back to that in a second. Let's do this first. Let's create the client, which is going to handle the messages for the bidirectional stream. And in the same ways we did that, we're going to create this up here in our product DB. First things first, this wants a new collection, so let's just create that. Make map string float 64. All right, that's now quiet. So let's add ourselves a function, and we're going to call it P, and it's going to be products DB handle updates. Pretty much exactly the same way as what we did in the service, but we're kind of just doing it in reverse. We're handling it from the client side now. So I need to subscribe for rates, and I need to get that subscription client. And it's going to be like that. Now, with the subscription client, what's going to happen is this is going to allow me to receive messages. Okay, so if I do sub dot, sorry, that needs to be just a new. Come on, subscribe rates returns me. Oh, I've got this back to front, haven't I? You see, I can do receive. Now, this is exactly the same as what was going on in my currency service. Remember, where are we? We're down here. See? It's pretty much just the reverse. We're implementing it on the client side because it's bidirectional. So on both sides, we have sending. On both sides, we have receiving. So let's just implement the receiving side. So sub receive, again, that returns an error and a rate response. So RR, error, sub receive. So we need to put that in a loop because we want to continually check. Receive is going to block. So we can just put that in a loop there. And then if we get a message, an updated rate, what we're going to do is we are just going to update our cache. So we can then just do our p dot rates, and it's going to be rr dot destination, because our base currency is always going to be euro, so we're only really interested in the destination, rr dot rate. So we're just going to update our collection. Now, if we get an error, so not equal to nil, we want to log that error. So we're going to do log error, error, and then we're just going to terminate this. So normally when you're kind of handling this, we'd probably want to kind of check this error and then we want to do something with it because we've got a disconnection. So we'd probably want to set up a retry or something. I'm just implementing this pretty straightforward and simple for the moment. All right. So what are we complaining about here? So it's saying I'm subscribing for rates, I'm getting an error and it's not doing anything. Well, that's a very good point. So let's handle that error. If error is not equal to nil, and we're going to say error, let's going to say unable to subscribe for rates. Something like that. Right. And then everything else looks good. So this handle updates function is just going to tick away in the background. And then whenever we get an updated rate, we can then just kind of update our cache. And then we're going to use the cache rather than calling that message out every time. So let's just implement that, PB, something like that. And then we're going to do handle the update. So it's going to be PB dot handle updates. We want to do that in the background. Return our collection. So now back down to where we were before, because we've now got that client. Oh, okay, good point. We're creating the client here. We need to use this client that's returned from subscribe rates in order to send messages, and we don't have a reference to it. So let's add the reference here. So what is it? Protos.client subscribe rates. It's going to be, I'm going to call it client. Currency subscribe rates client. And we're instantiating that. So let's just set it to initially nil. And then we can set it here. P.client. Right, there we go. So now we can use it. So down here, in our get rate, recap. If we've got it in the cache, just return the cache. If we don't, we want to get the initial rate, just kind of get it for the first time. And then we want to subscribe for updates on that rate. So to subscribe for updates, what we can do is we can do p.client.send bidirectional streaming message, and we can just say, hey, I want to get updates on this rate here. What we should also do is update our cache. So p.rates, and it's going to be destination rest.rate. So we're just updating the cache. And that's all good there. So now, whenever we call the handler in, if I can find it, what's in the get handler? Now, whenever we call this get handler, we're going to go and get the products. Get the products is going to get the currency rate. If need be, it's going to mutate it. Get the rate is going to try and use the cache if it has a cached item, and it's going to subscribe for updates if it doesn't. Back up here, when we create a new instance of our new product DB, we're also creating a bidirectional stream to the currency server, which is awaiting updates that we're subscribing to. So let's check this out. Before we do, I just want to put a little log message in here so that we can see that we're going to be getting those updates. So we can just do p.log.info, and we can say received updated rate from server. And it's going to be, just put destination there. Okay, so we can run all of these things now. So first things first, let's run our currency service. And let me just create a new one of those. And we can run our API. So we've got our API running. We've got our currency service running. Currency service is getting the bank rates. So we can now make a call to our currency service. And that is just going to do this get call like this. So we're going to do curl localhost 1990 products, and let's just get all of the products, but we're going to say currency equals US dollars. And of course, we just need to put this in speech marks because Bash is interpreting the question mark there. But we're getting that. Let me just pipe that into JQ so it's more readable. But we're getting all of the products there. Now, if we go over to our currency service, you can see that I'm getting these updated rates now. And if we look at our currency service, you can see I got that subscribe request and I've got those updated rates. Now, I've only had one request for get rate because I'm pushing the rates back to the subscribed party. Here you can see that I'm getting those pushed rates from the currency server. And if I just kind of refresh this, you can see there that that's changing. Look, we got 288 and then 234, 294, 298. And that's just our simulation that rate is changing there every 5 seconds. And that's it. We're done on that. So you've seen how we can implement a bidirectional stream and use it in our service. So I think bidirectional streaming in gRPC is really, really useful. I think, this is an example. There's a number of different things that you could do. You might be building like a messaging app or something like that, which could be really fun. But as a very basic example, you've seen how we can have our product API connect to the currency service, and rather than polling it all of the time for updated rates or hammering it because we're not maintaining a cache, we can use bidirectional streaming to subscribe and receive updates as and when they occur. And it's very, very simple to implement both on the service and also on the client. I think it's pretty cool. And in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're kind of getting to the end of gRPC, but there's two last things I want to look at. One is error handling, and the second is going to be middleware. And we're going to look at those in the next two episodes. But for now, don't forget, like and subscribe. Really helps the channel. And if you can, all the donations for charity, that's a great thing from those adverts. But I will see you next time.